We can get more analysis straight away because we're joined by Mikael Valtersson, who's a military analyst and a former officer of the Swedish Armed Forces. Thank you so much for your patience while we've been listening into these live events. As you were possibly hearing there, Iran saying it's not going to shy away from responding to anything Israel throws at it again, and justifying its missile launches on Tuesday, saying that they were necessary and proportionate, considering what it described as Israel's violations of Iranian sovereignty. And in fact, saying that the restraint that Iran has shown over the last 6-8 months is actually a demonstration of its responsible approach to the situation. Do you agree with that, the way that it's describing that, Iran?
Well, not really. Of course, an assassination of the person in your own country, like the Israeli did, is a violation of Iranian sovereignty. But launching 180 missiles towards Israel is, of course, an escalation. But Iran had the right to some kind of retaliation. And we also see Iranians has been killed in both Syria and in Lebanon, but they have been there in the military capacity. So you could claim from, at least from Israeli side, that they are legitimate targets. So it's a kind of escalation from Iran.
Okay. And I wonder where you stand on this one. At the UN Security Council, we were hearing a lot of warnings about escalations in the Middle East. But we also heard the representative from Sierra Leone simply saying the Middle East is at war already. Do you agree with that?
Yes, it's a kind of low-key war. It can be much hotter, but with airstrikes, missile strikes going over borders, it is a kind of war. It's like the war of attrition between Israel and Egypt at the beginning of the 70s. There was no official war, but they fought for a long time, making strikes at each other. So it's a kind of war.
And meanwhile, also today, fighting on the ground and the first reports of Israeli casualties from that fighting on the ground. There's been a lot of discussion, well, first of all, about whether it was going to launch a ground incursion in the first place. But now we're talking about whether this is going to be a limited incursion or a full-on invasion. What do you think? What do you think Israel plans to do?
I think that they're going to start in a limited way. But since they have accumulated so much forces in the northern part of at the border, 40,000 men is not needed to take over a couple of villages. So they are prepared to do a much larger incursion. But it depends also how the losses on the ground are. If it's very hard for Israel to advance, they probably will stay after maybe 10 kilometers or something and say, we have done what we wanted from the beginning. But if the going is easier, they might continue.
All right, and possibly also depending on public support as well for it. Mikael Valtersson, military analyst, thank you so much for joining us on the News Hour today.
Thank you for having me.